Welcome, friends. This is Martin Comtois from Saint-Jean-sur-le-Richelieu in the province of Quebec. And we're here to revive a series of videos on dream analysis. And before I start, I wanted to share with you how important um, these videos are to me and how important you, my audience, is in this process. And I was thinking about, especially in the light of the exchanges we've had over the course of these videos, the comments and the questions you've been asking, how it feels to me more and more like we're building a small community and that this community is one of shared practice. And so this dream workshop, these dream video series is in that light of sharing practice together. And with no further ado, here we are. The series Jung and Dreams, a collection of quotes and their interpretation and discussions. Today's quote is Dreams and Symbols with your host, Martin Comtois. Um, so, um, mm, in this process of traveling across the country, I've been offered an interesting task of redefining myself and the services I offer. And this video series is just that. It's a redefinition of myself. And um, I really appreciate all of you tuning in and supporting the channel um, and putting a like button and sharing it with your friends. So here's the quote for today. Um, the quote for today. Of course, we use Carl Jung for those of you who know me as an astrologer. I'm also a deep student of Carl Jung's psychology. And so, breaking down his work, this is from the Symbols and Interpretation of Dreams, on page 139, 140. This essay shows up in many places. So here it is. Dreams and their ambiguous symbols owe their forms on the one hand to repressed contents and on the other to archetypes. They thus have two aspects and enable one to interpret in two ways. One lays the emphasis either on their personal or on their archetypal aspect. So we'll break this down further. So let's just read through the quote. The former shows the morbid influence of repression and infantile wishes, while the later points to the sound instinctive basis. However fantastic the archetypal contents may be, they represent emotional powers or numinosities. If one should try to brush them aside, they would only get repressed and would create the same neurotic condition as before. The numinosity gives the contents an autonomous nature. This is a psychological fact that cannot be denied. If it is nevertheless denied, the regained contents are annihilated, and any attempt at synthesis is futile, but it appears to be a tempting way out and therefore it is often chosen. So Jung writes in a different century and has a much different language. And so breaking down, that's why reading Jung is so difficult. It requires an immense intellectual and moral courage, because it forces you to, one, realize your intellectual deficiencies, and then your psychological deficiencies as well. So I've been studying Jung for 15 years now, and I find my job to be really important in helping others approach Jung from this perspective that I have, which is unique as an astrologer, but also as a survivor of these times. What amazing adventures we're all living through. And dream analysis is super important in helping us. We'll read the quote again, but we'll break it down for you. So I've developed a bit of a slideshow for you. And so here it is. Let's look at the breakdown of the quote. So dreams and symbols. So first of all, dreams communicate with us through symbols. So when we look at a dream, we look at a language of symbol, which is kind of the language of art or mythology or spirituality and religion. It is expressed in a symbolic language. What are symbols? Symbols have a numinous power. They speak to the people who know how to read them, just like, for example, if you think of an eagle, you can look at an eagle very rationally and say, well, it's a big bird, bald eagle, white head, big feathers, and you can look at it, but you can look at it in the symbolic, mythological view of the eagle, and all of a sudden the eagle has so much to teach you. It's the bird of the sun. It can fly at the highest. It has a very wide view. It turns in circles, but yet has very piercing eyes. In native mythology, in Greek mythology, in the storytelling, the eagle plays a function that is a spiritual, psychological function, and it symbolizes that function when it comes into a dream. So it's a symbol. So the language of dreams is a language of symbols. And we're going to come back to that word again, but symbols have numinous feeling to it. So so this language of repressed content, this language of symbols expresses two things: repressed contents and archetype and instinct. That's very important. So repressed contents, what does that mean? So Jung and Freud developed what was called at that point the complex theory. The complex theory means that in psychological shock and trauma, a complex is created by the shock. So the ego, especially in the younger years, especially in the first 3 years of life, the ego is very porous and very easily affected by shock, and the shock of trauma creates a lesion that creates a sub-center of personality. So we have the ego and we have the complex. The complex has an autonomous aspect, and often that complex, like our mommy issues or daddy issues or fear of abandonment, all of these different aspects of, what we call a neurosis, is a complex. It's manifested by a complex, and you can touch that complex. And when that complex is activated, it becomes very strong depending on how we are constituted psychologically. But often this complex is repressed and below the level of consciousness. And then it exerts a power from the unconscious, and that we call a neurosis. A neurosis is the complex harassing the ego, the mommy issues, the daddy issues, the fear of abandonment, the ADHD, and all of the different complexes. These are childhood traumas that are unintegrated and have been repressed, and these contents will come into consciousness in the dreams and will be personified and will harass the personality, or will form a dialogue with the personality in the dreams. So that we call that the integration of the shadow. So the shadow is repressed contents that are manifested in the dreams as this sometimes theriomorphic animal form, sometimes the anthropomorphic human form, sometimes they come as monsters or as dark people. These are manifestations of the complexes. So that's the first content of the unconscious, and these are very that are manifested in dreams, and these are very personal in nature. Then there's the archetypal content. So as we progress in our dream practice, at the beginning, the content tend to be very personal and deal with the repressed contents of the individual of your own psyche, and they're expressed that way. But as you grow into your dream practice and as you integrate the shadow, then we have archetypes that show up. And these archetypes, that's a word for gods, or ancestors or angels or whatever you want to call them, give them a name. They represent the makeup of the collective unconscious. And sometimes even the collective consciousness. Whether you belong to a religion or you belong to a particular culture or race, you will have symbols that will show up that belong to your race, to your culture, to your religion, that have established power order. And so sometimes they will come into your dreams, and sometimes things that you're not conscious of that come from the depth of history. Sometimes our ancestors will communicate to us through our dreams. So that's the later stages in your individuation process. Dreams manifest archetypal content, and then we need to learn to differentiate between purely personal content and the integration of the shadow, and then the more psycho-spiritual content that is archetypal in nature. And Jung makes a very interesting distinction, or not a distinction, but he makes a rapport between archetype and instinct. And he says that they're actually the same. Archetypes are instinctual patterns that are marked into the human psyche. An example: mother. Mother with a big M, but mother also with a small m, or the way I interrelate or how I mother others, how I interface with the mother is an instinctual nature that is archetypal. We can deal with the great mother. We can deal with our mother. We can deal with the inner mother and how we nurture others and mother others. This is a instinctual nature that's ingrained. Man, woman, child, sometimes these are completely unconscious, and sometimes we make effort to become more conscious of these different expressions of these archetypes, but they're instinctual and archetypal in nature. They form the foundation of the human experience, and these are expressed in dreams. Blah, blah, blah. So I hope this is helpful. So let's continue. So then, and then what we'll do is we'll go through the quote again, and then we'll have more of an understanding of what it's saying. So objective or subjective interpretation. So Jung hints about that in this particular quote. So because of the repressed contents and the archetypal contents, we approach dream from an objective or subjective perspective. So what does that mean? An objective perspective to the dream means, you know, um, my mother shows up in a dream, and my fear of abandonment is triggered, or or my mother in my dream is sick, and so the next day I call my mother is sick, or sometimes often objectively we'll have events in our dreams that anticipate other events, or that just like Jung had a dream once where he dreamt that a friend was not well. And so he woke up in the middle of the night with this nightmare, and he noted the time. And the next day, he got a call from a relative who says so and so died, and he asked at what time, and he said at this particular time, and that was the time that he had noted. So then, dreams have an objective nature. They represent events and situations that need to be paid attention to, and that's an objective. And that's more like the Freudian way of looking at dreams. And then there's the subjective, which is the archetypal perspective, which is the psychospiritual perspective, and that everything in the dream says something about me. So then the mother dream that I have is a relationship, archetypal relationship with how I interrelate with the mother myself, the small m or the great M. And often the great mother will use the face of the personal mother as, or the grandmother, or, the grandmother being the great mother. And so then that becomes an archetypal lens to the dream. And that changes really deeply the meaning of the dream. And you can look at both lenses in looking at a dream. You can look at it as an objective way. I saw so and this happened, and I put one and one and two together, and I get an objective perspective to the dream. And the subjective value of it is also, it usually requires more work to get to it. And so we'll talk about this in future videos. How do we extract that meaning from the subjective and the archetypal in the symbolic perspective? And also, how do we get to those contents that are repressed? And so then we have the objective technique and the subjective technique. And again, dream analysis is a tool for psychological analysis, and blah, 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 blah. It is complicated, and these quotes and this video series is meant to help you along in your understanding. Blah, 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 blah. So then these contents, whether they be repressed contents or archetypal contents, speak in a numinosity. Numinosity, that's a beautiful word. numinous contents, archetypal contents, and even repressed contents have a numinous effect. They move us deeply emotionally. They're as if we're meeting a god or a lover or a monster. They have a tremendous emotional charge. Numen is the divine breath. It's that, that's the experience of the numen being the spirit, the air being that moves us, the ghost, so then there's a numinous feeling to the dream. The Jung differentiates between small dreams and big dreams, and the big dreams are the ones that have a lot of numinous charge to it. They're very emotional. We have a lot of fear. We have a lot of affect. We're in love. Like I had a dream last night where I had a lot of effect to it. So that's a very important dream that leads itself to analysis because of that emotional charge, because of the numinous charge. We'll be seeing that word often as we go along in our studies. And then this is really important. So we have integration or repression. So in this quote, Jung talks about faced with the content of the dream that has a numinous charge that's really moving me, I'm left with the choice of doing something about it and engaging in a conversation with this content. So that's active imagination. I take the monster, or I take the great, dragon or the serpent, and I engage in a conversation with it. I ask, what are you here to teach me? What is it that I'm trying to learn from this? And it will often point to either some repressed content in my own childhood. And if you continue to work with the dreams, that's the dream sequence, then gradually this material will be revealed to you. And so it's like the dream becomes your therapist. And of course, having someone to help you go through that process is really important. And as you gain experience in it, then you can help others. But dream analysis is an amazing practice, and combined with astrology, it's really next level tools. And so that's what the healer and the dreamer seeks to teach. And this is what this shared practice is about. It's about supporting each other in doing this great work. So we're trying to integrate contents from the unconscious. So this childhood trauma, I'm trying to bring it back to consciousness so that I can reintegrate it, and that feels like a emancipation of my personality, because parts of me were repressed in the unconscious. I brought them out. I had a conversation with it, and whatever libido when is in that complex, it becomes reintegrated in my personality. I become a bigger personality. That's called the development of personality, one of Jung's chief tenet in his philosophy, developing ourselves by emerging contents that have been repressed. And then there's the archetypal content that comes to consciousness, which basically then becomes like spiritual integration of ancestral and spiritual, psycho-spiritual baggage that makes me connected with a sense of purpose and a sense of mission and a sense of divine purpose. And so, these are the two benefits. We heal ourselves, and then we become the change that we want to see in the world through dream analysis. So, but what happens if there are contents that come and I don't want to deal with it? And then I repress them, then there's really no hope. for you, isn't there? Then we have recurring dreams, and then we have psychosomatic illnesses, and then we have uncontrollable urges and things that we cannot control, which are manifestations of these archetypal and individual content that we're refusing to integrate. And that's, where we get to, a lot of mental health problems that we have in our times. They're because we're refusing, or we don't know how to engage in a dialogue with these unconscious contents, which is the goal of psychology, Jungian psychology, and astrology, but also dream analysis. Blah, 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 blah. This is exciting. I hope you're benefiting from that. Please, if you have questions, ask. And also, if you have dreams you want to share, I'd be happy. I'm going to actually added a new section to this video series there you will see soon. But first, let's look back at our quote again and see if we understand it better. So dreams and their ambiguous symbol owe their forms on the one hand to repressed contents, and on the other to the archetypes. They thus have two aspects and enable one to interpret in two ways. One lays the emphasis either on their personal or on their archetypal aspects. So that's objective and subjective interpretation techniques. The former shows the morbid influence of repression and infantile wishes, while the later points to the sound instinctive basis. So what we have is a process of healing the soul, but also of connecting with the purpose of what we're here. So that's that instinctive basis. Instinctively, we know why we are here. We just need to discover that more consciously. However fantastic the archetypal contents may be, they represent emotional powers or numinosities. If one should try to brush them aside, they would only get repressed and would create the same neurotic condition as before. The numinosity gives the contents an anonymous nature. This is a psychological fact that cannot be denied. Psychological complex and archetypes are autonomous within our own psyche, and they engage in a relation. That's the basis of astrology, and that's the basis of dream analysis, is to realize the numinosity of the contents, and they have autonomous nature. The ego is not the only master in the house. There are complexes, and they are archetypes that form the total of the personality. If it is nevertheless denied, the regained contents are annihilated, and any attempt at a synthesis is futile. But it appears to be a tempting way out, and therefore it is often chosen. What that basically means is that, yes, we have all of these tools, and yes, we're confronted with this archetypal and complexes, personal and collective, in our dreams, but often we refuse to engage. We say we don't dream, or we don't pay attention. When that content is repressed, and it sneaks up as a psychosomatic symptom, so that we start feeling it in the body or in psychological complexes, compulsions, all the different myriads of diseases we have. And so dream analysis at this point becomes a healing discipline. And what a wonderful tool Jung has given us. And again, mixed with astrology. what an amazing dynamic. So I added a new feature to this video series, and that is dream contents from clients who and viewers who have the courage and the beautiful give me the beautiful opportunity to comment on their dreams. Of course, I can do this personally for you in a session. I do either astrological sessions or dream sessions or both together, which are very powerful. And so, that's so then this new feature in my video series is the feature of viewers' dreams and discussions. So this is two different content that were shared with me. And so I'm looking forward to your videos on dream analysis. Thank you for that. Last night, I had a brief and beautiful segment of my dream. Such beautiful imagery. The clouds in the sky opened up and the sun shone through, creating an upward golden, gray, and blue tunnel towards the sun. The word gray should read gray. And this majestic tunnel, there were thousands and thousands of birds of all colors, shapes, and size. It was such a beautiful vision. So if we look at this symbolically, and again, when you interpret a dream, you have to know about the person. So now this person has been struggling through the difficult part of individuation where you're actually facing your shadows, unintegrated parts of your personality that have been repressed. And so my friend has been struggling with dark depressions and difficulties throughout the winter, and this dream announces a breakthrough. The clouds in the sky opened up and the sun shone. So the sun is a symbol of individuation. It's the, in the astrological chart, the sun placement is really important as to what the person is here to shine in the life. And so there's this creating an upward golden gray blue tunnel towards the sun. That's really interesting because Jung deals with the dream sequence that's very similar, where a phallic symbol emerges from the sun, and a crazy person in the mental hospital was seeing this vision. And so Jung decided, was later found a passage in Egyptian mythology about this power of the sun being symbolized in the same way, so then there's a shining of the sun and there's a return to creativity. So then the dream could be seen as a breakthrough that is encouraging the individual to shine their light into the world. So that's fascinating. And so then the next part of the vision, and this majestic in this majestic, sorry, I didn't make, I went through the whole video editing, but I missed some parts. So in this majestic tunnel, there were thousands and thousands of birds of all colors, shapes, and sizes. It was such a beautiful vision. Now, again, when you analyze a dream, you have to know the person, and so having analysis and dream and astrological work with an individual gets you to understand what they're going through. And so this individual is a very complex individual who has gone through a tremendous amount of intellectual studies in his life. He has developed was, raised in Italy, went to some really high university, and was very qualified individual. And part of his neurosis was that all of that incredible intellectual talent was kind of laying dormant and being repressed, and it kind of rose up against him. And now these contents, these beautiful creative contents are manifested in this swirl of unimaginable bird, like all of these birds that are flying around in this vision. And so then this is a theriomorphic manifestation of the creativity of the individual. It makes a beautiful picture. And so Jung would say, you need to draw this picture and to express this picture. And then these birds, what are they trying to communicate to you? These are all the creative vignettes, your poetic nature, your incredible talent for writing, your incredible talent for visualization, and all of that. So then the vision becomes really clearly a sign of a breakthrough and sign of invitation to express all of these beautiful birds that are the content of your amazing personality. So that would be my, just a few touches, and I hope that this makes sense to you guys. And then I have one more vision that was given by someone else. And this has been fascinating, because when you work with dreams, often you'll have a lot of people bring up the same symbol. And so the symbol that's been really popular right now in dreams, but also in my studies, and so that's very interesting. I've been reading a lot about the symbolism of the snake and how the snake represents unconscious content. So I had a dream. I swallowed, again, didn't edit, a live snake. It was very vivid and real. So the integration of unconscious content, we could look at in two ways. One, I'm integrating in unconscious content and the complex. That's a very scary one manifested by a snake. So that can be the integration of a complex. It could be also the repression of a complex. I'm refusing to see it. And then if it has an archetypal nature, then what does the snake represent? The kundalini, in Greek mythology, the companion of the great mother was a snake, and she had made love with the snake by rubbing it in her hands, and from that the universe was created. And of course we have the snake in Adam and Eve, who invites Adam and Eve to partake of the tree of good and evil, which is really the invitation to consciousness, which is symbolized in this myth. And so then the snake plays a really important role. I had many dreams, snake dreams in my own process. So then how do you differentiate, like these birds in the first vision and this snake, what is it that this snake or these birds are there to communicate? And so Jung thought a tool called active imagination, meaning actively you take your imagination and you take your symbol and you give it a voice. In modern times, we call that channeling, right? So you channel the snake. What do you have to say to me? And then you listen and you write down what it's saying. You may also paint the snake. You may paint the beautiful sun breaking through the clouds and the birds and the tunnel. And so then by the act of actively using your imagination, we give a voice to the unconscious who opens the door we basically open the door to the unconscious, and then the unconscious starts speaking with us. And that is what a dream analysis practice is. It's an active communication with the archetypal world, but also with the inner contents of my consciousness that are repressed. So it's a tremendous tool, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. We went into pretty big details there. I hope that we weren't too long. And so my last slide in this show is the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology. I'm Martin Comtois. I'm a dream analyst and astrologer. And if you'd like to contact me, Spirit of the Times 108 at gmail.com. So that's my show for you today. Again, this is the first one in a long time. I had 7 other ones before that are done many years ago. You can find them in the rest of this playlist, and more coming. And any encouragement, feedback, questions, and if you want to see your dreams dealt with in this series, share them with me, either through email or on the comment section. And we'll continue on this shared practice of giving a voice to our dreams and outlining our destiny through our astrological practices. It's always an honor to share my work with you, and I look forward to hearing from you. All right, over and out. Whoop, whoop, whoop.